Between losing your property on taxes and crack houses, you can't make this shit up.
Well, welcome to the You Can't Make This Shit Up podcast. We're kind of taking you from behind the scenes here and putting you in front of the camera now. And, you know, as you know, this is for, you know, we're doing crazy stories. You can't make this shit up stories about success, failure, but ultimately lessons learned in the crazy life that we live. So welcome to the podcast. We're happy to have you here. And I'm going to kick it over to Tim for a little intro.
Yeah,
right.
So Will Host, you are the owner/CEO of Andosha Marketing Solutions, one of the premier fractional CMO plus execution solutions here in this area. And all of my marketing gets done through your organization, and just absolutely love the work that you and your team are able to provide organizations. In addition to that, you've got a whole host of other companies that
we
are in
just
your
learned about.
portfolio. Yeah, exactly. And so we can't wait to have you on today's show and just to hear about your journey and the challenges, the opportunities, the knowledge that you've collected along the way. And so thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Yeah, thank you guys. And both of you are close friends. We keep rigorous track of ROI with COIs and all kinds of stuff like that. And so Tim, you've been instrumental through EOS to help us build our business as well as refer us business. I know that there's a large dollar amount that's associated to this relationship that you've helped us in business. So thank you a lot. Yeah, so I've got some You Can't Make This Shit Up stories. First, just a little bit of context. So started working when I was 16 at a car wash. That's where I learned that I love work, right? So like even in high school, in the summers, I was pulling like, 120, 130, 140, probably not even legal, hour paychecks, because I learned I love to make money, and then I love to use that money to make more money. And when I turned 18, I was a senior in high school. I had an opportunity to intern at an insurance company. So one of my bosses was an insurance broker, and the other one was a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. So that was life-changing for me. Brad and Jared, both of those guys poured into me, and they had me read one of my first kind of leadership books. It was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it just like opened up my eyes. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household. I didn't grow up with where that was a natural ambition, but that book and seeing entrepreneurs and understanding what was really in me really changed the game. So Brad, my boss at the time, had owned probably about 50 properties at that point and was really big into the rental business. And so I just started like a sponge, taking everything I could from him. And when I turned 20, I got very serious about wanting to acquire properties. And so he helped me set up everything. He taught me how to do the LLC in Wyoming so that you get the maximum tax benefits, and how to bring it back to, West Virginia and get all of our stuff. And he taught me how to save. And then he taught me the most important skill, which is how to negotiate a real estate deal. And so Marissa and I got married. She was 19. I was 20. We were still in college. And we had saved up about $8,000, and we put down on our first property, which was $30,000. And I mean, an absolute shithole. And it's not that we came from nothing, but whatever it is, my parents were divorced. I had like a fierce independence on the inside of me. And I don't think I was dishonorable in it, but literally when I was 18, I was like, I'm never taking another dollar from my parents. I will never take money from my parents. I'm going to do this. I didn't probably have to do that, but I did. And Marissa and I bought this house. Complete mess. I mean, it was like knob and tube wiring. The floors were unfinished. I wouldn't let my daughter anywhere close to this house. And we literally got a mattress, It's the like one of the only things we owned, and we slept on a floor on the mattress on unfinished wood for like the first couple weeks as we were renovating the house. We did it room by room, rewired the whole place ourselves, put a new roof on, repainted it, refinished the hardwood floors, room by room, turned it into a very beautiful old home. The home was built in like early 1900s, and it ended up being a really great property. We exited really well with it. We took that, we did it again, we rented. And throughout this process, Brad taught me how to purchase portfolios of properties and how to do it by owner financing, by saying the right things and talking to the seller about how it's tax beneficial and all the ways that we do this. So right around 2021, we started buying portfolios of properties, and that's where the multiple property companies come in. So Marissa and I have some. I have a 50-50 partnership with another partner, and then me and 3 other guys went 4 ways into a portfolio of properties. So that's just sort of context to cue you in. I'm 24 years old. We're making money, and I've got a picture. Maybe the team can like put it in here. I'm wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat. I've got like thousands of dollars in cash each hand because we were renting to these illegal Mexicans, which was freaking awesome.
I mean, when you started talking about the car washes, I thought that was going to go a different way. I think there's a TV series on that somewhere.
There is, yeah. No, I mean that could have went, yeah. So, I wasn't necessarily the smartest person, right? I'm just like a dumb hick from West Virginia that is probably too ambitious. And so we're making money, and we're renting to these illegal Mexicans that are paying us thousands of dollars in cash, and it's freaking awesome. And that's where most of my, like, I guess, funny stories come from, because real estate's nuts. I'm glad it's not the main thing I do anymore. I could never make a full living and pursue that, because it's insane. Like, one thing my mentor told me is, like, if you're going to get into the property business, like, watch your heart, because it's going to sour your heart toward people, because you're going to deal with like the worst of the worst all the time. So anyways, one story, thankfully we don't manage our properties anymore. They're all in a property management company. CPA takes care of everything. Literally, we just have to once a quarter go in, get solid on our vision, make sure that, high level invoices are approved, whatever. But in the early days, we were doing everything. So like, I was unclogging toilets and freaking doing drywall work and getting people in, and unfortunately sometimes getting people out, right? And so this lady, I'm sorry, this is probably gonna make me sound like a douche, but she was like 3 months back on her rent, which, I mean, we're a small property company. Right. Like, every month matters. Cash flow is insane in the property business. So we had to evict her, and it was an atrocious experience. So this chick was back 3 months on her rent, and when you go to the magistrate and you get somebody kicked out, they give the person like 45 more days. And so now you're 45 more days back, before you can list it. And then it's going to take you another month to get it listed. So now you're back 5 months on your rent, right? Anyways, she finally got out. The sheriff came, got her out, and our period to go in and kind of flip the home over so that we could rent it again was over. And Marissa and I went in, my wife, and first of all, she was wearing flip-flops that day. She's walking over heroin needles, and I'm going to paint myself out to be a slumlord. We're not. It was a nice property. It was just, unfortunately, a drug dealer. All right, so we're walking over needles, and then we smell the most, god-awful smell you've ever smelled in your life. And this chick went out, probably to Sam's Club. It had to have been some sort of bulk store. I don't know. And bought a ton of meat, marinated it, and left it out all over the counters. Took a giant shit in the toilet, left it there for weeks before we could get in. And we had to clean it all up. Because who do you hire to clean that up?
Right.
There's not a company in the world that's going to come. Like, we had cleaning services and people, handymen and people, but you can't hire somebody to do that. And so we cleaned it up. And
Put
so
a mask
that's
in the suit and
nope, no mask, no suit, just
bare hands, no
freaking
gloves.
No, we put on gloves. Are you freaking kidding me? So yeah. Anyways, that's kind of my first can't make this shit up story, and maybe there's other landlords out there that experience the same thing, but absolutely insane. The second story that came out, actually that first home that Marissa and I renovated before we sold it, we rented it for about 5 years, and the largest drug bust in Clarksburg, West Virginia history in like the last 5 years was unfortunately at my house. and so it's like in the papers. I have got neighbors calling me like, what the is going on? Like, get control of your property. And I'm like, dude, we don't even manage this thing anymore. I didn't put them in there. I'm sorry. Like, we'll make it right. All this stuff.
But they were paying cash. That was like one.
No,
of the,
those guys were not paying
indicator
cash.
Of,
No, they listen. These guys were seemingly solid. And look, we don't run like a shady organization. It's true. Like
The
we
IRS
don't
is
anymore.
gonna be
We
all
don't
Yeah,
over
anymore.
you.
Yeah. We learned our
well, there's
lesson.
more to. That's my third story. So I'll
Yeah.
talk to you about the IRS. So, anyways, no, I mean we do background checks, we do credit checks, like it's legit. And these people passed everything with flying colors. And my property management company, who's the best in the city, they slip by them too. And so, anyways, largest drug bust in Clarksburg history in my home. Now it's like a freaking meth house or whatever. It's got to go through some sort of process. We had to like tape up the windows and get it all cleaned up or whatever to re-rent. At the same time, they found like 10 illegal animals in there.
Oh wow.
There were like freaking South African snakes that aren't even supposed to be in America. There were like some sort of freaking lizards they were sending me pictures of that these freaking crackheads had in this house. And so we had to get the property turned over to rent because we still have to make money, or else now we're not going to be able to pay our mortgage on the place. And then we had to find something to do with these freaking animals. You got lizards and snakes and scorpions and things that aren't even supposed to be in America illegal. And so thankfully we got all that taken care of. But yeah, freaking nuts. I do not recommend.
Did you just call the zoo? I mean, what are you doing?
No, the property management company took care of it. I was like,
Okay,
just freaking
don't tell me. Just take
get
care
rid of
it,
them,
yeah.
okay? Like,
Make
I
them
don't
disappear.
make them disappear. All right. Yeah. So, anyways, that was freaking nuts. I mean, do you guys have like properties, or like have you had anything like that happen?
I have never ventured in. It's so much easier to buy a mutual fund.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't.
Like
My
I've thought about it, and then I'm like, but a mutual fund, it's so much easier.
Yeah. Mutual funds don't leave illegal animals and a ton of crack in your house.
The closest thing I have a my salon suite where we rent out salon suites. We have one in Pittsburgh, 37 suites, one in Altoona, 30 suites. A little more, I would say, elevated maybe experience. We don't accept cash, but we do have, there are situations where people don't pay,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
then you also want to. This is an entrepreneur experience for a lot of the stylists coming in, where they're going out on their own for the first time and try to start their own business. You're acting as a mentor, and there's going to be hurdles, and they're going to have challenges and maybe not be able to pay rent. And so how do you handle that, right? Like, how long do you let it last? And like early on, our heart was big, and we really tried to help people. But then you're not
helping
people. Like
people.
your mentor said, you kind of you start to have to put some rules in place, and that was difficult, right? And
Oh, yeah.
some people they'll leave it destroyed. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With animals. I mean, we've got fish tanks and like everything else that's been left in these places. You got to redo them, but much on a smaller scale, right? It's a smaller suite, so it wasn't like an entire house that we have to go in and recapture. But it's crazy.
Yeah. So while I'm staying in self-deprecation mode and making all of our listeners completely lose their respect for me, a massive mistake that kind of shaped the way that I handle our company today. We run a tight ship at Andosha. Obviously, we always pay our stuff on time. We're very profitable. It's good, but I learned some mistakes that like really kind of set me on that path. So probably about 5 years ago, one of our property portfolios, there's 15 in this portfolio. In our city, we have to pay B&O tax and city tax and all the stuff. And you get these big blue receipts in the mail that let you know how much you owe Uncle Sam, right? And so Marissa and I had just moved, and I forgot to log in at the county courthouse our new address. So every half year you pay your property taxes, right? And I'm usually 6 months late. You can be 6 months late and you just accrue a little bit of a penalty. It's whatever. So it slipped my mind. I'm growing this other company, and I'm doing these other things in life, and the property things have always been something on the side, And so anyways, we've got about a $10,000 tax bill for our properties, and it's really getting late. And it slipped my mind because I'm not getting the bill in the mail because we moved and whatever, and it took them a couple months to find me. They will find you, but it takes them some time to find you, right? And so We get this bill in the mail. It's $10,000. All right, not expected. It's fine. I wrote a check to the county courthouse, and unbeknownst to me, the courthouse changed their policy on receiving checks to pay taxes. It has to be a certified check. Never used to be the case. Had to be a certified check. So I got a call saying, "Hey, we're not going to cash this check. This is just a check." I'm like, "Okay, like how much time do I have before these are like, I'm like back on my taxes?" And they're like 30 days. So I'm like, oh, man. So I went to the bank. I got a certified check. I mailed it in. Everything is super slow, like with the county that we own these properties in. And so it took them a couple weeks to process that. And the thing about property taxes is every 30 days, your amount that you owe changes because they accrue more fees onto it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wrote the check for, I don't know what it was, $10,222.54, right? It's got to be exact. Well, by the freaking time they processed it, it had already changed. And unlike a courteous business, the government doesn't say like, "Oh, Mr. Host, thanks so much for sending this in. We cashed your check, but you owe us, $200 more because of the fees." No, they just don't tell you. Mm-hmm. And then you have to find out again when the sheriff is calling you and saying, "You have like 5 days to pay this." And I didn't get it in on time. And so literally on the day that I went back on my taxes, somebody bought our 15 properties on the courthouse steps for our back taxes. And that was one of the worst days of my freaking life. So some freaking guy drove up from down south West Virginia and bought 15 properties off of us for the $10,000 that we owed on our taxes. And I lost our properties. So, empathize with that for a second. I'm like throwing up in my mouth. I'm like, I've got to call my partner and be like, dude, in both of us, we're not aloof to the business, but we're both doing and growing other big things at the same time. This is a side thing for us. We're like, wouldn't it be fun for us to own properties together, right? Wow. That's the whole narrative. Everything's in a property management company. This is hands-off type of stuff. And so he wasn't pissed because he's not really involved either. He's just like, well, okay, what do we do? We just lost all of our freaking properties. And so when that happens, you've got 2 years. Do you know what it's like to buy property? Because this is a whole business that people get into, is buying property on back taxes.
I've heard about it, but not from
Well, I've always heard about it as an opportunity on the other end. Yeah. I've never had it happen to me. I'm the sucker that somebody, he's telling he can't make this shit up story like I've got these suckers. So you have 2 years to pay them the fee for purchasing the properties. There's a bunch that goes on with that. You've got to pay all your back taxes, and then you've got to pay all of your upcoming taxes as well to get the properties back.
Okay, you can't get them back, thank God.
So it took us 6 months. Because we had to find the guy. We had to call the freaking assessor's office at the Capitol, Charleston, West Virginia. It was the worst. But I didn't know I could get them back at the time. I was just there's, I don't know, $500,000 down the hole. Like I'm in at 25 years old, I'm a freaking idiot, which I was.
Did you lose the rent during that time? Like the 6 months or whatever that?
No, because the way that it works is they purchase the property, and essentially if they buy it on taxes, and somebody who knows a lot more than me that's probably going to listen to this is going to correct me on a few details. High level, the way it works is you have 2 years to pay them back, and then in 2 years that person's essentially due the note and deed. Regardless, right? So that $10,000 tax bill ended up costing us $25,000, which set us back about a year in our investments, right? So we got the properties back, thank God. I'll never make that mistake again. But dudes, that was a freaking wild 6 month period. I lost a lot of sleep at the same time growing what was now in Dosha, our main thing. So anyways,
a huge lesson, right?
Oh, dude, pay your freaking taxes, I guess. Yeah, and don't rely on freaking the government to hold your hand, right? They're not a very courteous and helpful entity, right? It's just like it's due to them and
the fees and penalties,
Oh,
it's like absurd. I've had one where it's like a $500 bill that turns into $28,000 in dues and penalties. It's
like that. Like that.
Yeah.
And I so actually Brad, the same guy that gave me my first shot in my internship and taught me how to get into this business. We were just talking like a month ago about how it's interesting in the property business and in really any business. He was like, do you ever feel like you just don't really know how well you're doing? Like you can see your P&L and you can see that you're growing, but there's always that like, am I back on something? am I going to get like sued out of nowhere? Am I going to get like a $50,000 bill out of nowhere? Because it's not unheard of. You can do all your due diligence and then realize that you're back on some sort of, workers' comp thing, and you owe tens of thousands of dollars that you weren't expecting, and it could just happen just like that. And so I think that's something that people that aren't entrepreneurs don't know about, is like you can plan and prep and be as due diligent as possible, but that's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
I just experienced this myself, and had no idea. We do the staff, we do a ton of payroll. I mean, we basically on the temp side and on the field service side, we process a lot of payroll, and there for each payroll, there's all these tax codes, local codes, especially in Pennsylvania, right? You have all these local codes and state codes and all of that, and you get charged, $3.99 for every single code or whatever as you're processing payroll, whether you're using these codes or not. So if you, I think we hired, over 1,000 people, and imagine all the different codes for that. But then whenever those people roll off or get hired or converted, those tax codes stay there, and so you do the math, you start 250, 300 tax codes at $3.99 a piece every single week. Like, it adds up without canceling those. And if you're not on your game and you don't know that those are still being hit, and then if you have a single payroll, and some of these payroll companies, depending on the customer, will run multiple payrolls. Most of it's in one, but if you do that once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then you start doing the multiples of that, it can get out of control.
Oh, dude.
I mean, out of control. And so we had a oh shit moment.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, and it cost us, 6 figures plus,
And that's not like
and that's
you had a
just
rainy day fund that was like
no,
gonna pay
had
for
no
this,
idea.
because it comes out of
you're
nowhere.
looking at your P&L and everything's good, and it's like you said, I had no idea that this was happening, and then we found it, and it was like, wow, this has been going on for way too long.
Now, this never
Multiple
happens to
years.
Tim, because Tim,
He's got it all
he's
dialed in.
he's a Dave Ramsey coach. He's got all of it. He's got cash in the bank. He's not
definitely-
worried about a thing.
I'm definitely more integrator than visionary.
Well, you're dealing with two of probably the most visionary
Yeah,
people.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
It's hard to tell those stories sometimes too, because it's like
It's
embarrassing.
vulnerable.
It's like,
It's
what?
embarrassing.
It is. It's like, man.
But how do people learn? Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? If it's like you keep things taboo, like, man, one thing I couldn't stand growing up, and I love my dad. If my dad listens to this, is no slight on him, but like the whole, like, you don't tell people how much you make. You don't tell people how you made your money. You don't tell people what you're investing. I can't stand that. Like, transparency is what, like, that's what breeds the best lessons. You know what I mean? And so I think, I'll tell people exactly what we have in the bank, exactly how much money we lost, and exactly how big of an idiot I am, because it goes into wise living now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it could save somebody from freaking losing their properties or whatever.
And so then how did that help change your approach to maybe Andosha or your other businesses that you have of, okay, I now know that there's these risks out there. And so is there anything that you've done to try to mitigate as many as you can, or have the emergency fund, or like, what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say that changed my habitual, like, my behaviors and everything. And it has to some extent, but it's more so just, I got to have the best CPA that I could find. I've got to have the best property manager. I've got to make sure that there's more communication amongst them. So it's not like I got out of that and I'm like, I'm going to be I'm going to personally be the best taxpayer possible. No, I want to hire the best taxpayer
Amen to that,
possible.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have
That's
that
a
same
great
philosophy,
lesson,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you think of what all of our businesses are, right? It's all about helping people surround themselves with the best possible talent in order to be able to achieve their vision and to be able to execute, right? You need help with marketing and branding and execution and on that, right? Staffing, finding the right talent, bringing in the right team, right? Being able to organize all of these things and execute, that's where I come in. But each of us are all about helping people strengthen their circle. And that maybe is the lesson, right? The most important thing that we do as business leaders is to surround ourselves with the best possible circle we can. And and then go from there.
It's we talk a lot about books, right? I think Who Not How. If you
Yes.
haven't read Who
Oh,
Not How, like
100%.
that was another one.
Dan
that's like,
Sullivan,
Yep.
Ben Hardy,
yeah, it
fantastic.
was
Absolutely.
unbelievable, and that's what it is, right? It's
That is
like I don't need
exactly
to
what it
figure out
is.
how to do this. I need to
Yep.
figure out the who that can help me do it.
Because that's the actual leadership lesson. Like, and I feel like a lot of mistake people make. It's not like I could do this better type of mentality or whatever. Yeah, it's learning that you do have to have the best people in the right seats. So
And that's part of the journey, right? Like you and Marissa were cleaning toilets and, putting new toilets in and rewiring an entire house. And, God bless you with a helper that a lot of women would be like, I
No,
love you,
she's
but
awesome.
I'm out, right?
She's
But she
awesome.
was right there with you. And the two of you had to do all those things in the beginning.
yes.
And so often for entrepreneurs and leaders, as they grow their organization, they get to the point where they don't have to do those things anymore, but they're unwilling to let go of those things, right? And to delegate and to bring in the right people and to get the who, not how. And so talk about that. Was that difficult in your journey, and how have you work through that as a leader?
Yeah, it is the overcoming the mentality of I can do this better myself, right? Like that's so poisonous to good leadership. And it's kind of what was bred in me growing up, more of a good old boy or whatever, and you get your hands dirty and you do it yourself, and there's like a lot of pride in that. But yeah, I mean, it's just learning to not do that. I mean, we put practical things in place, for Andosha, which is much, much larger than our property companies even combined. Implementing things like profit first, and which has revolutionized our company, and understanding that like we've got these 5 or 6 accounts and they all need to be hefty, right, for these things that come down the road. So yes, I've got a good controller. Yes, I've got a good CPA, but we have put in systems in place to try to mitigate things on the other side of that, right? Like I like to, for us, we're about $1 million in revenue. I like to keep 30,000 in our tax account at all time, even if taxes are paid, because of that thing. You never know when freaking Uncle Sam could come knocking and you realize that you made some sort of mistake. It's not even malicious.
Right.
See, I know I'm not answering your question, but like one thing I've gotten a little bit of empathy toward is like people that are back on their taxes, and you hear about like these people, like how could he, I'm from West Virginia, so like Jim Justice was like back on some of his taxes. You're talking about a multi-billionaire, and it's like he's such a malicious individual. Like, no, when you own so much and when you've got these giant portfolios, it's so easy for something small to slip through the cracks. You know what I mean? And so anyways, for whatever that's worth, I have empathy toward people that do make mistakes when it comes to, and then obviously there's people that embezzle money and they are malicious, but I like to think that like most aren't. I don't know. They're just honest mistakes that are easy to make when it comes to this type of stuff. Like misunderstanding the way that payroll is coded, and it freaking costs you 6 figures.
It's great for the payroll company.
Yeah. They're never going to be the ones that come and tell you that.
Oh yeah. Well, no. And once we found like, oh yeah, and you're right. We did it by the MSA, but we do feel bad. They did work. I mean, this is where partnerships also. I mean, we've talked about this before. So we had say come to Jesus about this, and there were certain things they could do and they couldn't do, but they did work with us to find a solution that was a little less painful, but also, helped us moving forward and kind of offset some things. So it wasn't all the way. I mean, we still feel the pain of that. But having a good partner helped get through that. But it wasn't like this was already, it's not like we had to write them. We'd been writing them checks for 2 years, that we shouldn't have been doing. So if we can, let's switch gears a little bit. I think a topic, at least I know that is popular in my world and both of yours, is this fractional service. I know that's what you do. So kind of for the people that aren't familiar with that, kind of help us understand what are fractional CMOs, what are fractional CFOs, and maybe even sales, just kind of
Sure.
that whole world.
Sure.
And what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Yeah, so our main thing now, Andosha, provides fractional marketing leadership, which is not uncommon, right? There's agencies out there that provide that type of service. And so the idea of fractional is, a lot of companies, they might need a full-time CMO or marketing director, and that FTE is probably going to be between 100 on the low end and 200 on the higher end, right? And so what we're able to do is help SMBs, small and mid-sized businesses that, maybe it doesn't make sense for them to have a full-time marketing director, or it's just not as cost effective for them to have a full-time marketing director, to come in for a fraction of that FTE cost and provide them literally a fraction of a marketing director, right? So fractional. People are providing these services in all of the C-suite. There's fractional CFOs, there's fractional salespeople. I even saw the other day on LinkedIn fractional CEO. I can't wrap my head around that one. But so it's this idea that you are doing this for multiple companies. Now, I think for marketing, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of companies, because you've got these marketing directors that are making a lot of money, and the truth is that their jobs can be streamlined pretty well, especially when you have an agency that's doing the creative execution that comes alongside of it, right? So the way that would look is, rather than a company hiring a full-time marketing director who they might be experienced, they might have great strategy and planning and be able to, pace a budget for marketing and report to the C-suite and all that kind of stuff, board, whatever it might be. But that person still has to go out and hire an agency. That's
the frustration, right?
Right.
That's the frustration with CMOs is, okay, I have a strategy. Now I have to go get the digital person and the website person and the creative person and the podcast person and blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
And so you've changed that model.
Yeah. And there's nothing unique under the sun. What you have to do is, get different. And position yourself differently to make yourself look unique. And I do believe there's some things about what we do that is extremely unique. And so, for that $10,000 to $20,000 a month range, we can come in and provide a CMO and an entire cross-functional marketing team that does everything. And I mean everything. So when we sign deals with customers in that price range, there's never an additional bill. Right, so if that person wants to, we've got a customer that has a $500,000 ad spend across legacy TV. We shoot all the commercials for all the major networks. We write we're copywriters, all kinds of different marketing professionals that come in, graphic designers, videographers, photographers, all of that. We provide all of it for one monthly cost, and it's always locked in. So with that, we refounded Andosha about 3.5 years ago, and have scaled it from about 50,000 to $1 million in revenue. And we've had very little churn. We've had to fire a couple clients, but it's a model that works well.
That's awesome. And then through that, right, that's tremendous growth. You had to build your team.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that.
Yeah. Even when we were like, like the first year, trying just to break 100,000, right? So I needed to hire people. So I took no salary for the first year, and I just lived on my wife's income. She was a director of nursing at the time. She was doing pretty well, and so we could do that. So the first year I paid my team, and then the second year we kept hiring better and better people. Really only up until, I would say, 2 months ago, I've had people on the team that make more than me. In 2 years ago when we went all in, my wife quit her job. She joined the company too. So like the stakes got freaking real, right? We went from like a 150,000+ combined income, which isn't a lot for a lot of people listening. It's not a lot, but it's a lot for us coming from nothing, West Virginia. I mean, we went from that to we lived on 50,000 for 2 years, and lived in like the shittiest apartment we could find in Verona, PA, because that's all we could afford, right? But I knew I needed to pay our team well, and I knew I needed to get people that were better than me around me. And so that's still the philosophy today. Thank God we're profitable enough where we can start paying ourselves a little better. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. I know you're probably looking for principles and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, it's been freaking like head down for the last 3 years, and I haven't really had time to like look up and be like, how did this happen? It's just freaking work.
But throughout all of this, right, that whole core principle of surrounding yourself with the best possible people, you've stayed absolutely true to. And so the team that you've built at Andosha is just absolutely incredible. They're all top tier talent that are bought into your mission, the mission and the vision of Andosha, and are all unbelievably committed people. And so being able to build that, right? and so some people say, well, I just kind of did it, but there was more to it than that. I know how purposeful you are in all of those. So what are some of those lessons?
Sure. Again, the lessons question's hard to answer, so maybe I can answer it with some tools.
Yeah,
maybe.
Perfect.
So I mean, we subscribe to the predictive index. It's a big investment for us as a company of our size, right? But every single person we hire has to fall within a certain amount of profiles the predictive index can kick out. We make them take a cognitive. They've got to be above a certain cognitive score. So I'll say on top of, I do think I've made my gut a little bit more robust. I know you were talking in a previous episode with Greg Fuhrer about this. The combination of a refined gut and knowing who you should hire and an assessment like predictive index is really it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to name a bunch of other secret sauces.
Like I said, 100% sure, 60% right. You're just trying to get it higher, right?
Exactly. And just like he mentioned in that previous episode, I mean, there's certain profiles we do not hire. Right. We will not hire promoters. I won't mention a couple of other ones just in case people are that. But no, we know that we love guardians. We know that we need people who are high C, high D, because I'm literally 3 sigmas low C, and I'm very low D as well. So not a lot of detail, very driven, right? So we need people that kind of do that. And our PI consultant, Eric Guy, has been phenomenal with us to help us build the metrics that we need to help us build our team. So I'd love to say it was because of my genius and all of that, but it's not. It's because I hired the right person to help me.
One of the things I think makes unique, and one of the things that was attractive to me, because I also, you're a big part of my team and the success that we have, is the purpose driven. That's one of our values, but you're very purpose driven. And I assume even when you were starting out and not really able to pay yourself, but you're convincing other people to come work for you. What's the purpose piece, and like, why are you doing this? We've talked, even Greg talked about it on a previous episode about the impact and what that looks like. And I think whenever you talk about, uniqueness in what you're doing, I maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So this is not something that's written on any of our walls or our website or whatever, but it sort of lays the foundation for everything we do. So something I say to the team often is, we're a for-profit company. Make no mistake, we are a for-profit company. But what is the profit for? For-profit company, but what is the profit for? It's about something that's bigger than us. So I come from the ministry. I come from a Christian background. I'm still, I love the Lord. I believe it's my call in life to now build his kingdom and to be as generous as we possibly can be. So our 10-year target that we have with Tim and EOS is not revenue-based. It's based off of how much we can give. And sure, how much we can give is a percentage of, GP and all that kind of stuff. But GP, revenue, all that crap, like, awesome. I want to be able to freaking write big checks to nonprofits, the church, people who are making an impact in something that's bigger than us. So for us at Andosha, we want to be able to give $100,000 a year back to the community and back to things that are bigger than us that build God's kingdom and make the world a better place. And I think for the right people, that's attractive, right? Like, genuinely, we're not just a money-hungry agency. Everything we do, we want to freaking make impact. Yeah. I think about the things that like irk me on the inside, which I think is indicative of call in life, like the things that rub me the wrong way. It's, man, when I see entrepreneurs freaking like write big checks and they're philanthropic, that's what freaking lights a fire on the inside of me. I'm so pissed that the biggest check I can write now out of Andosha is a $10,000 check. Because I see the $100,000 check. I want to make massive impact in the world, and we're very transparent about that with the team. So whether you're a Christian or not, everything we do is to make an impact in the kingdom of God.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And what a great way to bring people along with you on that journey, right? Because a lot of organizations talk about giving back. A lot of organizations talk about the impact that they make in the broader community, but very few actually execute on it. And you've been able to have the rubber hit the road, so to speak, and to be able to show that and demonstrate that on a regular basis with your team. So unbelievably great job.
And it changes the priority, right? And how you're looking at it. I know we've had this discussion many times, and it also took me to change that 10-year target from it started out as a revenue target, right? And then, well, that doesn't make sense. It should be a profit target, right?
Yep.
Was wait a second. That's not really what that's not what it is.
That's right.
It should be what we're going to be able to give back. It should be how much can we donate target, right? And you can build that off of, we want to be into 100 million at 10% margins. That's, 10 million. And then we want to be able to donate 10% of everything we make, right? So what's that number?
Yep.
That's the number I want to go after, right? Because then that will impact everything else.
Yeah. That's right.
We're throwing out a lot of books on this podcast, but Simon Sinek's Start With Why, right? By doing that, you're able to clearly articulate the why. Why are we doing what we're doing to the team, right? We're able to engage them, get them bought into that mission, and so it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I'll say to that, and maybe this is applicable to nobody, I don't know. I think people have philanthropic goals maybe long term, or they say like, when I get here, then I'll give. When I hit this number, then I'll donate. And sorry to get preachy for a second, but I'm a big believer in sowing and reaping, right? And like you can't wait to like write that $1 million check when you're at 100 million, because you probably won't write it, right? Like you have to set metrics and give what you can now. And so that's what we try to do, right? Like, so we can't write a $100,000 check now, but year to date, we've given 30,000, which for us is, again, I'm transparent. I'm not trying to like whatever. For us, that's like 18% of net profit. Yeah. That's a frick ton. But it's not enough, right? Like we want to keep giving. I believe that us setting those practices in motion now will bring that reaping, right? That allows us to keep growing so that we can keep getting that number up.
One of the things I'm playing around with in this too is how because you're also want to be aligned with your customers, right? So you had to fire some customers, and you try to align on values as much as you can, and it's not always perfect. But how can you then take that, let's say whatever it is, 10% or 18% or whatever that number is, and then align with either customers or your employees? Like, what are the like? As long as it's within the bucket that you care about and that you want it to be impactful, then start to,
Are you trying to get me to give to the Impact Foundation right now?
No, I'm trying to figure out how the Impact Foundation can help you.
Let's go.
And also some of our employees have incredible local charities and organizations that are amazing. It doesn't have to be huge, right? And go to these it can also be very targeted, local. And then also now this is impacting your employees' lives and like what they care about. Like, so how do you think about that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And one of the things that you just touched on was alignment of the right ideal client for you. And one of the things that I'm so impressed with what Indosha does is you guys are very crystal clear of who your ideal client is, who you work best with. And right from the beginning, you hit them over the head with that. So I would love just share that with us, because I think for most organizations, right, I used to have a boss that said, you want to sell 3 words: segmentation, segmentation, segmentation. Like, get really crystal clear on who you're going to talk to and what you're going to say, right? And so I love that, but most people just stop there, and you've taken it beyond that to then communicate to them, this is the fit for me as well. And so share how your approach to that.
Sure. And when I present this is work in progress too, right? I've got a board, I've got, a Vistage group that's working with me on these things to try to refine it a little bit better. But we do try to stay true. Our 3 filters that we work with. Number 1, we only work with companies that are greater than $5 million in annual revenue. 2, they have a void in marketing and communications, right? So they need a marketing director, or they have some creative execution pain points. And then 3, very important to us, is that they have a very clearly stated vision, in the sense of they might not run on EOS, but we're looking for something like a 10-year target, right? Because we want to work with people who are very intentionally trying to grow. And for me personally, I love CEOs and visionaries who they say, I'm at 30 million and I want to be at 100 million. And like, that freaking fires me up. I won't sleep that night. I'll just think about
remember one of the first times we met and we went through it, and it was like within the first few days or the first week, I'm like, I think Will might be like into my vision more than I am. Like, he was like all in, and I love that about him. Like, when I think there's something you've told, like, that's part of who you are, and you're like, I have to be bought in to your mission.
So number one core value.
I could feel that from you, and like that was very. It was a big part of the reason why I chose to work with you.
And that's the psychographic, right? So you're really crystal clear on the demographic. They have to be over a certain size. But then more importantly, what's the psychographic? Like, what's this person trying to achieve? How bought in are they? And can I throw kerosene on that fire
exactly
to help them get there more
grow
quickly.
further faster? Exactly, 100%. Yeah, and so that is, we've got 4 core values. I won't list them all up, but we get your vision's number 1, right? So it really is a core value and a way that we behave. And so what that manifests as is we care as close to as much as the visionary about their vision as they do, right? So we eat, sleep, and breathe it. Like, it's kind of like KYC or know your customer, right? Like, no, really know them, get it, understand. Like, I rattled off your 10-year target, not because I think about your 10-year target all the time. I don't care about my 10-year target as much as I care about your 10-year target. Our vision as a company is great. That's why we do what we do, but we get there by caring about your vision more, right? And so, and the same thing with you, Tim, with the EOS practice. And so, anyways, does that make sense? Was that
I love
okay answer?
No, it's a great answer, right? Because you demonstrate just how crystal clear you are. And then the ability to sit in front of a customer and say, this is what I'm looking for. This is who I work best with, because this is a partnership. You are becoming a team member, right? The whole idea of the fractional marketing is you are fully integrated into the leadership team of that organization.
Yes.
It's a great lesson.
So
it's a great lesson, right?
Gotta match.
Yes.
For marketing, for I mean, even in recruiting and understanding the customer's values and vision and being able to connect to that and then be able to present that to other people is and sometimes they need help figuring some of that stuff out, especially the smaller companies that maybe haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And so that's I think it's a great lesson to be able to.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if this is applicable to anybody. It's more of just like a testament to how good God is. I didn't know that there was necessarily a job like this that I could do that would satiate such a deep satisfaction on the inside of me. Because I'm not passionate about just one thing. I'm passionate about many things, and this is a perfect occupation for me that when I'm in front of Josh Roberts, I'm freaking passionate about staffing. Right, I'm wearing your logo when I'm with you. When I'm around Greg Fuhrer in the previous episode, I'm literally wearing his logo on my lapel. And around him, we educate and empower clients to make informed financial decisions so that you can live a fulfilling life. It's his mission. I know what his vision, and we're passionately behind it. When I'm with that board, it's the same. And when I'm with the nonprofit, it's the same. And just thankful, because I don't think a life like that would exist outside of what we've built in Dosha.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so, as you think back through your leadership journey, what's that one piece of advice that you wish you had earlier as you're the 20-something swapping out toilets, or, right, as you went through that journey, what's been the biggest aha, the biggest lesson you've learned?
Yeah, I feel like I'm still young and early on in that journey, still in the first couple steps of it, but there was a pastor that said something really impactful, and he didn't say it to me. He it was just something that he said in the sermon, and I felt like it was straight to me. Those moments.
Those are the best moments.
Yeah, and all he said was, facilitate what's happening. Don't try to make stuff happen. Facilitate what's happening. Don't try to make stuff happen. Which probably doesn't make a lot of sense to most people, right? And to me, that was deeply profound. Like I'm crying listening to that, because I feel like my whole life I've been super ambitious. When I was in the church, super ambitious for the next position, for just to grow with the properties, one more property and still I battle this today with, Andosha, one more customer, let's freaking go, and this idea that no, if you just facilitate what's happening, enjoy it a little bit.
Is this layman's terms, live in the moment?
Live in the moment, facilitate what's happening right now. Don't try to make more stuff happen. God, the universe, whatever you want to say, it sort of has a way of rewarding that. Just don't try so hard to make stuff work and fit, square pegs into round holes. Just freaking what's been given to you today. Take a deep breath and do it the best you can. And don't worry so much about what tomorrow's going to look like or how big you are versus how big somebody else is or, whatever, how much revenue you have or how this is going to get done. Just freaking facilitate what's happening. Don't try to make stuff happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. The way I always think about kind of that same concept is to love the process. Right?
You would say that.
That right? And that's like what I preach to my kids, to me, right? Because, and I was awful at this in the earlier part of my career, like awful. Like I made myself and everyone around me miserable. And I'm embarrassed to say that publicly, but it's the truth. Like I was so focused on where I wanted to be. I was never happy with where I was.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. And you and I have debated the gap and the gain and right. Another Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy book. That. Right. And we've had those conversations, but you have to enjoy the grind.
Do you have a disagreement on the gap and the gain? Is there like
I think a little bit because you said that's not your favorite book, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I very much enjoyed it. Maybe it's not my favorite because it's still something I'm not on the other side, right?
Maybe
like I'm still like learning it, right?
Like to me, that was the biggest conviction of a book I've read in a long time.
Yeah.
Right? And where I was convicted was not only my own journey, but my expectations of others along their journey, right? And when you start, for the people that want to know more about this, right, the gap and the gain is when you're looking where you are to where you want to be, that's the gap, right? You're not there, and us highly driven, type A personalities, like always want more and more and more, we're kind of wired that way to be constantly looking at not where we are, but where we want to be versus looking at the gain of how far we've come along our journey. So if you just kind of turn yourself around and appreciate that.
That's good. So what I'd like to argue about, and we can cut this out if this is boring crap, but
we need more arguments.
Yeah, no. You sparked my memory. I know my conflict with it. It's this. I feel like I've been pretty decent about surrounding myself with mentors. I've got, older people in the marketing industry that are around me, one guy in particular. And I feel like people who are they're on the other side. They're maybe retired or they've exited their companies. They've reached their net worth, goals, all that kind of stuff. Their advice is always just like, enjoy it. Go slow. Yeah, don't hustle so hard. Don't do all this. And it's like, bro, but you literally did those things to get you where you are. You know what I mean? Like, I've always had that, like, I could kind of see through that a little bit of like, stop telling me not to like hustle or not to work hard or to enjoy the process and stuff. Like, but because you didn't enjoy the process and you exited a company phenomenally and you're sitting where I want to be someday. Yeah. So how do I get where you are and take the advice that you didn't take yourself?
It's a great question. And I think that I guess what I've learned, because I still view myself just as ambitious. Like, like I'm still killing myself way beyond what I need to or have to, right? Yes. But I love the process. I love doing it, but I'm also enjoying my life, right? And enjoying the journey. Because that's the whole thing, right? Life's is not a destination; it's a journey. We only live this once.
You said you don't have to beat yourself up.
So you don't have to beat yourself up, right?
To get to the same place.
Exactly. You can still work as hard. No one's saying don't work hard, right? Mm-hmm. And my daughter, she works unbelievably hard at what she's trying to achieve in her life, and she set some unbelievably ridiculous high goals, but it's not about whether or not she achieves those goals, right? It's about her becoming the best version of herself and having a life that she loves. And so it does, like, in some ways, I don't want my daughter just to be like me, right? Because I know that I wasn't always happy. And the one thing that we want for our kids is for them to be happy. And I think that's still work hard, still push, like drive, do the thing, but also recognize that you've made
the gain,
progress.
right? If you're
Recognize
trying
the
to get
gain.
to 30 and you end up at 25, don't just focus on the 5 that you didn't get. Give yourself at least like the gain,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay,
Celebrate
we did get
the
from
wins.
0 to 25, like,
Right.
but also like next time I'm going to get to 30, right? Like you can still do, I think maybe a
Yes.
little bit of
Sure.
both, but some people just get caught up in the gap and they don't give themselves credit for the gain.
Sure.
And I
And
think
where
that's maybe the lesson.
Yeah.
absolutely, and when that goes into your personal relationships, when you put your goals on other people and you know your kids and say, I wish you were this far and you're only this far, right? That's where that gets toxic.
Sure.
And
I don't think he's convinced though.
Yeah, I know. And that's
Do you
what-
agree? Do you agree with this overall?
The gap in the game?
Like, do you feel like you're in a spot right now in your leadership where you're living this out?
Yeah, better than I was before. But to your point, like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Still a challenge every
it's
time.
a challenge, and I didn't. I think I beat myself up way too much. You know. So,
Yeah.
And we make a good point, but like maybe I needed some of that, like beating myself up to get to where I am now, where I can enjoy it. Right. I don't know if I was like if I had enjoyed it or knew the gap in the gain and focused on that early.
Yep.
If I would have been able to enjoy it like I do now, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
It's like a
almost like you
climber at the
kinda
top
have
of the
to
mountain.
Go through the
Yeah, I mean, it's like a climber at the top of the mountain looking down at other climbers being like, hey, don't climb so hard.
yeah.
And it's like, you're on the top.
And I guess that's the thing. Right?
Just
I'm not-
enjoy the climb a little bit more.
To be clear, I am not saying don't climb hard.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
yeah.
am saying every couple steps, look down and go, wow, this is an
Right.
unbelievable view. And then start climbing again.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying, right? And so
No, it makes sense. Thanks for the argument.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us and share your insights and your stories. And we really, really appreciate it. So
Appreciate both
it's
of
always
you.
great hanging out with you.
Thank you.